All right, it is 6:30. So I'd like to get started here. Welcome everybody. This is, I believe, the second official OUSA NRE course review. I'm Christina Luis, Communications Manager for OUSA. I just want to say before we get started that this video is this session is being recorded. So keep that in mind if you don't want to appear in any recordings. Either keep your video and microphone off or leave the meeting. On the flip side, you'll be able to find this video afterwards on OUSA's YouTube channel. We have a playlist for course review videos. All right, so we have a good crowd here, and we had a fair number of people respond to the survey that went out. There's a form that went out requesting legs to look at. So what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to do a quick overview of the tools that we'll be using, and then I picked a few legs that were the most commonly requested. There were several legs that were requested by many people, and we'll take a look at those. And if someone who ran those legs is on the call and wants to talk about it, I'll pass on the mic to that person, and they can talk about what their thought process was in choosing their route, whether it was a positive outcome or not. So hopefully everybody has something to learn from this, and maybe a little bit of entertainment. All right, awesome. So first things first, let's get rid of this. The tools we'll be using tonight, we've got LiveLox, which most people who are here are probably familiar with it, but it's a route sharing and analysis tool. And Orienteering USA has a nationwide subscription for all clubs, which means that any event that an OUSA club puts on has access to the sort of pro features, the advanced features that normally would cost someone money. So we're going to be using LiveLox. You want to play along at home, you can go to livelox.com. You can see that, so what I've done to find the events from this, or the LiveLox events from the Georgia Navigator Cup, I changed the time. I went to all events here. I changed the time to past month and just entered in Georgia in the search state, and that got me all 3 days from the Georgia Navigator Cup. The first day was a middle distance that didn't count towards Masters Nationals. It was just it was an NRE, so you got ranking points, but it wasn't part of the 2-day Masters Nationals. And then days 1 and 2 were combined time, 2-day classic. So we're going to be using LiveLox. We're also going to be using, occasionally I might pop over to look at the splits as they were published on Attack Point. And so to see these, go to attackpoint.org, and you can go to the racing tab, and if you might be able to go back. Ooh, actually, I don't know how you find past events. Archive, there we go. All right, there we go. So if you go to the archive, then you can find the event. And there's a listing for the splits. This one actually, this particular event only included the Saturday and Sunday events. And you can see a listing for each course. If you have an account on Attack Point, and you put in your ePunch number in your settings, then you can receive an email letting you know when the splits have come through, when they've been published, and then you can go and they'll appear in your log. But the reason we're going to use these splits to supplement is mostly because of this little speed indicator. Attack Point calculates the speed you were going independent of where you placed in the event. So you might be someone who was running really fast because some of your splits were really fast, but you made a lot of mistakes. So you were down on the list, but you may have a high speed marking, and that can be useful when comparing routes. So
can you zoom in some so everybody else can see when you?
Thanks for that. So those are the two main tools we're going to use tonight. So let's get started. Actually, I'm curious. I didn't have a form like we did for the last one for instant collecting of data. We didn't do like but if you could just pop into the chat and type in which course you ran if you were at the Georgia Navigator Cup, And if you weren't there, I'd also like to know that, like, wasn't there. So if everyone could just pop into the chat and say what they did, just so we can get a little bit of an idea. But I am going to start with one of the most requested legs of the weekend. This is green X on day 2. So I see, let's see, I already see a couple green X's. In the chat. So maybe we'll get some of you who are green X, if you're willing, you can talk about it a little bit. But so this was one of the most commonly requested legs for the weekend. Control this leg from going from 6 to 7 on green X. And I'm gonna, before we actually look at just at that leg, let's zoom out a little bit and take a look at the shape of the course, the whole course. Let's see if I can get it all to show up. That works. I'm sorry, my mouse is zoomy. Right. I'm going to use the buttons. All right, so this was the Green X course, which was the course that I think most of the men, if not all of the men on green ran, as opposed to the Green Y, which had the first level of Masters women. This had the second level, the mid-level, I guess, age of Masters men, as well as, I think it was M20 on this one too. Oh no, they would have been red, M18, I guess. So taking a look at the course, the one that we're going to look at, first is this 6 to 7, which you can see is the longest leg on the course, and it was after a little bit of running, so people have gotten used to the terrain. But first really long route choice leg. So let's take a little look. Here we go. So I've got the actual individual routes that people ran turned off. So take a moment and look at this leg and think about how you might approach this leg. So my first question for people real quick is up or down. Is this leg net up or net down as far as beginning control versus end control? I wasn't sure whether anyone was going to answer that or pop it into the chat, but I think that it is almost at the same level. It's maybe one line higher overall from 6 to 7. Ted says, I don't think it matters. Probably not in this case, because that's why I actually asked, because it's almost the same. But you can't stay on the same, you can't just contour around, right? It's an unreasonable approach. So what matters is everything in between. 6 is close to the water. That is true. Though this is downstream, right? So the water gets lower as we go up that way. All right, so let's take a look at what people did. We've got a couple, I think, looking at it. I like to always look at a leg and think left, right, straight. Look at all 3 of those things. Do I see a reasonable way to get there left, right, straight? And keeping in mind the climb, the ease of running, the ease of navigation, and definitely the approach to the control. Because if the approach is difficult, it might take me an extra minute or 2, even if the rest of the leg was good. So straight would require a lot of up and down, a lot of side hilling, quite a bit of accumulated climb. There's a pretty good right option that involves coming up somewhere to all these trails, right over the top here, and then down. A fairly broad ridge, a little bit just off the left of the nose of the control. And there's also, looks like a couple left routes that follow the trail. There's a trail that goes all the way up the stream, the river, but with a difficult climb at the end. So if we take a look at a couple of the fastest routes here, let's see, how far do I have to go? Ooh. I'm going to take off some of these other ones. All right. I'm going to leave just the top, the fastest one that went over the top and the fastest runner to the left. So we can see that the right route, taking the trails going over the top and having the approach down the ridge into the control, was 2.5 minutes faster than the fastest person who ran around to the left. And if you look at Niels's route, and I think he's on the call too, so maybe he'll talk about it a little bit. It doesn't look like any weird things are happening. It looks like it was executed well. Chose to go up the trail and then have a cross attack to the actual control. So the reason that I talked about using attack point splits here was we can take a look at the relative speeds of these two runners. So Niels has almost 100.
Do you want us to just chime in or raise our hand? How do you want us to do this?
I will. I'll get you to talk in just a second.
Okay.
So we see that they're both very fast runners, so we can't attribute differences in just running speed. So yeah, we've got a couple people who ran this leg on the call. It sounds like Ted, you want to hop in?
I was hoping Niels would hop in first.
Okay, Niels, do you want to hop?
Sure.
Niels,
Can you hear
also,
me?
yes. Also, I can share if you want me to share the. I can share that on the screen if you want what you sent me.
No, that's fine. We can just stay where we are.
Okay, great.
I chose this route because I hadn't. I felt my climb. I mean, my strength doing the climbs weren't up to par this weekend, and I knew I can keep good speed. And I was running well the whole leg. The problem with these type of legs along rivers is that often you have rocky sections, certainly in the Northeast, we see that. I would never have done this in the Northeast. And this was the case here. And there were a couple of sections, it's hard to see, but if you look in there, there are stairs going up and down. And there were quite a few people out this morning. And so it was, you were slowed down in the middle of the leg there. And then I was also add that if you look at my final section, I like to do steep climbs on trails. I did that, but I compared myself to Danny O'Callaghan, who followed the big trail on the bottom of the valley a little bit further and climbed straight up to the boulder. And he beat me about 45 seconds doing that. So it's a mix of just obstacles along the way and that suboptimal route up the hill.
I pulled up Danny's route too, so we could see that. And did you do a dual?
I looked. I had this GPS track, so I at home.
Oh, okay, you actually did it. You did analysis.
Well, that difference, the last section is about 45 seconds.
Yeah, that's good analysis because attack LiveLox's dual feature also says 43. So
yeah.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is the difference between where their routes are different. So where this trail junction is, Niels went up and Danny kept going, and just in that portion, Danny gained 43 seconds. And I imagine you two were running. You feel like you're running at similar speeds.
Yeah,
generally?
I would say that the top 10, on men on the Green X are about the same speed, everyone.
Great.
But I would also comment on Min Jae's execution, and he'll probably talk about it himself, but I thought it was really well done, and the way he didn't cut corners but stuck to the trails and running fast, and very well executed.
Yeah, Minjae, you're on the call. Would you like to talk a little about how you chose this route and how it went?
Sure, yeah. I honestly did not see the Riverside Trail, and my one thought was I definitely wanted to avoid all that mess down there, and I was still feeling in good condition. So I was like, get the climb over with in the beginning, and then this trail, it's a little bit of up, towards the area near 10, but then it kind of levels off. And also, I thought it would be pretty easy to just come off that trail junction and follow like the really big spur down. And so partly just that I was feeling fine to run more, and the attack point looked nice. So.
And when you say attack point, you mean an attack point, or do you mean just the approach in general?
Like the attack, like the features.
The visualization of your approach in general, just down this, just on the left side of the page. Okay, cool. I see a comment in the chat about the left seeming much shorter. We can see that Minjay, and is that how you pronounce your name? Is it Minjay?
Yeah, Minjay.
Was just under 2K, and Danny's route was also just under 2K. Though it looks like it, I'm not sure if that's correct because his GPS does something funny. Let's see, Neil's, yeah, just two. It looks like the distance was not the primary difference between these two. I think it was mostly the runability along this trail with the stairs and the rocks and the people.
I would also, yeah, so it wasn't that different in distance at the end of the day, and the climb also was more similar than I thought.
Pretty similar.
I think Minjay's had about 60-meter climb, and I had 45. I think one thing with climb is also how that manifests itself, and Minjay's climb was spread out a little bit, easier to keep good speed, and that very steep final climb, that is just super slow. And so in hindsight, that was a very poor choice. And I didn't, again, I gained 15-meter climb, and that's nothing in the context of this.
Right, over a 2-kilometer leg.
Yeah.
A question for you, Neil specifically. I always like to think of if routes are similar and one involves a steep climb at the end, I often steer away from that because of the difficulty in thinking and making myself do the right thing if I'm doing a hard effort. Do you consider that?
I do, and often when I look at route choice analysis, which I actually quite often do after big events, I look at not only the leg I'm analyzing, but on the next leg. And you often find that the people who end the leg with a steep climb like I did often are slower on the following leg because they still have that fatigue in their leg. It doesn't happen always, but often, I do look at both those legs to actually get the full comparison of of a leg and with the climb.
Well, it looks like this time you weren't put off.
Yeah, and benefit of the route I ran was that I could really, run fast and stretched out. So yes, I had the climb and that was steep, but I had a really fun, 10-minute fast run. And so I think it was a little bit of that still kept me strong.
Great. Is there anybody else who ran this leg who has anything would like to talk about it?
This leg was incredibly similar to the one, the blue and the red.
Blue, which I actually have pulled up, so we can talk about that one.
The only difference was that instead of going on green, it went to this 8th control. It went a little further. The control was a little further down, and it was, I think, more. Sometimes, like more, you could see the around more choice more because it wasn't so high up in the hill anyway.
Yeah, anyone who ran this particular leg on green, I will get right to that. We'll go to the blue one because it's so similar. I just wanted to point it out.
I'm going to say the same. I'm going to say the same thing Minjay said, that I would have taken the stream route had I seen it, because I still, looking at it, I still thought it would be faster until I see the actual route splits, because it just looked like a cleaner run. Put your head down, no thinking until you make to the final bend, and then it's where you cut up. And I always walk the uphill anyway, so whether I'm walking the uphill or, I'm not going to lose as much time. I think the 45 seconds that Neil's lost, but you can just put your head down with the trails. I had to still slow down to read some of the trails as I went by.
Yeah, I think it's because of the nature of the terrain here. If I zoom in,
I said I can't see that with my eyes.
yeah,
And I didn't even see the trail till well after the event. Somebody was saying they took the lower route because
and you said
the
what
gap
lower
between
route?
the gap between the trail and the stream is minimal, especially in the rock area.
Yeah, it's especially difficult to see that there's a trail in here where it's rocky ground and there are boulders and there are cliffs. And I think we actually have the mapper on the call.
I just thought it was an uncrossed stream, is what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll pop over to the blue because blue had almost exactly the same leg. My mouse is problematic today. So looking at the leg we just looked at went from the same starting control, that dot in the hole on the edge of the hill, and to number 7 on blue, and blue did the opposite. So that small change might make a little bit of difference in what kind of route people choose to do, because it does make the routes a little bit different in length instead of being basically equivalent. And also it's lower down, so you can take the climb on this trail here. So we can take a look at the fastest routes here. I think, yep, it's the top 2. But really, is Yuri on this call?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Hi, yeah, I thought I saw you pop in. You were so much faster than everybody else, and I wonder if you think that is, well, anyway, just tell us about your route execution and why you chose to go that way.
Yeah, actually, when I just came to the finish, I talked to course setter, like Sergey Pisarchik, and I told him that if I would have, like, our course, blue course, if the choice, if instead of number 6 was number 7, I mean, like, exactly the same leg as we discussed at the green X course, then it would be kind of much more difficult to choose, like, in my opinion. Because this one, like a blue course from 5 to 6, it looks like very obvious to me. It's if you kind of quickly look at it, right or left, it looks sort of equal in the term of distance. But if you go to the right, definitely I see that I can run like much faster there because the climb doesn't look so kind of scare at me. So, and to me it was kind of clear that I would run to the right. But again, if I would run the green X course, then yeah, to me it feels like more and more going to the left. But still, at that point, I mean, this big intersection, like on the top of the hill. For example, if I go to number 6 or to the number 7 direct as at the course Grand X, it's kind of a same approach. So in this case, we can clearly see that taking to the right is kind of the best option to the green as well. So that's it.
Yeah, and it actually, looking at your route for this leg is 250 meters shorter than Minjay on the green, and I think it's not just because of where the control is, but you also cut your initial part of the leg is different.
Yeah, you mean like from the beginning, like
Yes.
yeah, but
Yep.
I was, in that part of the course, I just followed my eyes. So I just took a look, and it looked not extremely hilly. So I decided to cut. It was like nice open forest. I just made a shortcut. It was good.
Yeah. So you were prioritizing just getting up
Yeah.
to, I guess up to this. This is what you're trying to get to, is this point sufficiently.
Yeah, like when there's a nice and open forest, I just look ahead, and if I see that it's kind of I can realize my speed, I can go fast, then I just go. So I mean, there is no so big difference if you run through the forest or on the trail. I mean, in that forest.
Yeah. Yeah, for anyone who wasn't there, the woods, especially on Sunday, I mean, a lot of very beautiful, wide open forest, no leaves on the trees, and the ground was hard. It was
Yeah.
very fast. It was possible in many places to run very fast in the forest. Yeah, so we just want to take a quick look again here. I mean, not so different. You cut this part here. It looks like
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah,
straight
I mean, approach is kind of same.
Yeah, it's just a micro choice there, or macro, or meso. That's the word I'm looking for. Great. Is there anyone else who ran blue who'd like to talk about their approach on this leg? I noticed that AJ, or Anthony, if that's what he wants to be called, he climbed a little bit. I don't know whether I would be curious to know whether he didn't see the lower trail or if he recognized that it might be slow, because he took the upper trail part of the way, which I would imagine was better running. I can turn off the route so we can take a look. But I took this upper trail for a ways, and I'm not sure that I saw anyone on, it would have been the same on green to be able to do that if you were going to do the river route.
Yeah, well, he did avoid the worst part of the trail along the river.
I'd love to know whether he made the choice because of what he saw on the map or because what he didn't see on the map. Like if whether he didn't see the trail down there or if he thought it would be slow. We may never know. All right, great. I want to go on to a different leg. We've looked at this. This was a nice, interesting, long setup. So let's take a look now. We'll move over to, no, actually, yeah, we can do this. Green Y. This was the course that the women on green ran. So that would be actually it was only F45 and F50 because there were no 35s and 40s. So this was the not quite so old ladies course. And requested by a few people was the leg to number 6, 5 to 6, which was, if we look at the whole course really quick, let me do that. One of actually the longest, looks like the longest leg on the course. We have a modestly long leg, 8 to 9, but really there was no mega leg. So this is one of the longer sort of route choicey legs on the course. Is there anyone other than me who ran this course who'd like to talk a little bit about what they did? I'm sorry about the zooming.
I did do this course.
Anna, would you like to talk about what you had the fastest time? You want to talk about?
I'm 5 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
I hopped on the trail and ran it until the big bend in the trail. Yeah, and then I followed to the left of the reentrant, kind of just above it. And just, that was kind of a bearing from the edge and from the reentrant over the water.
Straight over
to
the introduction. I'm curious how the running was. So for everyone who is looking at this leg at home, we'll turn off the route. That I see it as a couple choices here. We have what Anna just described, which is pretty close to the line, but taking advantage of trail as much as possible here. And then using this reentrant sort of as a handrail and then crossing the stream and climbing up to the small reentrant that's off the medium-sized one. Another option would be to come up and go along this trail and then go across sort of side hill, which I think those are the two main options. Also, you could take this ride down and then come up. So I'm curious, Anna, how the running was. Were you able to run at a good speed down this steeper slope?
It was kind of choppy just because it was steep, and I remember it being kind of rooty or slippery. There's something going on, or maybe I was just following my bearing, but it was not a speedy route down from the trail.
Down from the trail, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really curious. So I attempted to execute a left route and did it very poorly. So you can see what I should have done is probably just cut somewhere around here, or they intended to take the trail, didn't see it, so I ended up climbing more and coming around. But my intention was to avoid the downhill. I thought the downhill would be slow here, and I also didn't want to have to climb at the end. And I thought, well, this is pretty much just contouring around from where this trail at the end of the little lake is. But I had, and it was a little slow side hilling. I'm not sure that was worth it compared to running downhill, but my poor execution sort of cost me anyway. And if we do a little duel, I'm pretty sure, Anna, you were running faster anyway. And since we had different routes the whole way, it doesn't really help us. I don't know if there's a way to compare just yeah, you can see if I just by doing this, how much more ground on that big trail I was able to cover compared to you're going down. But overall, I think I had some poor choices in execution there. Let's see, I think all the fastest runners. Okay, another choice from Joanna. Also chose to go. Well, that might be interesting. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My mouse. That might be an interesting thing to look at since we had the same end of route. So a minute 20 faster to go, not surprising at all, right? Much less distance to go straighter and then down to the lake. And then I was a little bit quicker at the final part there. Yeah. Anyway, is there anybody else on this call who was on green Y?
I also had this course. This was overall, I felt like this map went a lot better than the previous day, but that was my leg that I kind of messed up. I was aiming to do what Anna did, but I ended up on the upper trail, and then I didn't completely realize it until I got to the the intersection, which it wasn't that big a deal, but it was a little annoying because I probably should have been a little bit more careful and just paid attention to where I was.
Okay, so you're saying your intention was to hit this trail?
Well, yeah, I was trying to kind of diagonally.
You thought you would hit it before the intersection?
Not before that. I wasn't specifically aiming before the intersection or at it, I guess, just kind of to get to the flat one. And clearly it didn't happen.
That's actually interesting. I mean, this call can definitely be more than just a route discussion and analysis, but also talking about like how we can prevent errors like that.
Probably maybe paying a little bit more attention to my compass or something.
Yeah, that's one way, right? You can tell that you were a little bit, even your route up to the trail, but once you hit the trail, it should have been pretty easy to be able to tell, right, which way.
Yeah.
I see in the chat. So we had a question about, is there a difference between handrails and guardrails? I think we talked about handrails using the thing. I actually am not. I don't know that I've used the term guardrail, but I can imagine people might use it as something to keep you from going too far, as opposed to hand railing. But maybe they're the same thing. If anyone has any insight into the term guardrail, pop it into the chat. All right, I thought this was an interesting leg because there's actually not that much. Doesn't need to be very much to it. Going straight was likely the best route, but because there's just a lot of stuff, it makes you think a little bit more, and make it. Some people like me overcomplicated it, and that's what makes orienteering interesting, is that we come up with different things. All right, cool. I'm going to move on to a different course. We're going to go on. These two were both on day 2 on the Sunday. Now we've got a day 1 leg, this time on Brown X, which is the course the men on Brown ran. I don't know if it was all the men. And leg 6 to 7 was one of them more heavily requested legs. We can see 6 here starting on the boulders, 7 going to, I'm not sure whether the feature is, it looks like a little stone wall. Is that what that is? Ah, yeah, like a little dam. Or it's the rootstock, I'm not sure. I'll give everyone a little bit to think about how you would do this route on this leg. All right, before I start clicking on some names, is there anyone here who ran this course and would like to talk about their route?
Yeah, I ran the course. This is Joseph.
Joseph, would you like to talk about your route?
Yeah, mostly I just kind of went straight. I went, yeah, there you go. That's what I did. And I'll tell you what I didn't do was I was trying to leave the green to the left side. But as you can see, I went right through it. But it was, it was brutal, all the ups and downs. So that's.
Yeah, I think this is Glenn. You can kind of avoid, if you pop my route up there, you kind of can minimize those ups and downs a little bit going the way I did. But first I picked up the ride that just comes out at just north of 6 or northwest east of 6. And then as I dropped down into the valley there, just to be sure where I was, I caught that second trail and took it over to that straight line thing there is mapped as kind of an indistinct trail, a bit of a power line. I don't think there's any stone wall in there, but it's a good feature if you can pick it up. And that's why I was kind of going up that spur. But then it takes you up to the reentrant, which has a nice little piece of stone wall up near the top that I used as the attack point. The power line was kind of what I would say is a ruined power line, because I saw a piece of it, the wire down on the ground. Other people didn't even see it. So it could be a bit of a misleading feature in there.
Yeah, Jim here. I had a slightly different approach. I'd actually hit number 6 about the same time as Bruce Moore. I knew he'd started a bit ahead of me, so that sort of flustered me a bit of, okay, what has he done that, so he was sort of heading off to the right. And I knew I wanted to get to that, go up through that reentrant. I didn't really see the ride. So, I sort of initially dropped down a little bit and then climbing up there. I think it was much faster the way Glenn executed it on that first part. But then my approach was more to take advantage of that lower, flatter area about halfway through, just up and over the ridge, barrel down the other side, see the trail. And it was so open of just making sure you count the right reentrants and get into the right one. And it was just left of my line, that reentrant right under the purple line was very obvious, climbing up over there. I started to get real concerned when I didn't see anything that looked like a power line or anything that looked at a trail, crested the ridge and could see the buildings ahead of me. So it was sort of using that as okay, I'm sort of in the right spot, but then very much looking left to right. As you see, I was quite a bit to the southeast. I could see up and down that whole sort of reentrant, and those were like almost like little, dams or waterfalls, and couldn't quite see the one to the far right. Could see the one ahead, but then I saw the rootstock, and it was just a matter of barreling down to it. And that was, I don't know what the controlled description was, but it was, Yeah.
It was on the
very short
stone wall, I think.
Yeah, very short and very and not very tall, but there was right by the rootstock. There was a control there, so I was sort of happy with that. I could have saved some time being a little bit more careful, coming up over the ridge, but I could see the green to the left, but it wasn't distinct enough that I was really using that to sort of lead me in.
One thing I'd like to say about that stone wall is that from up on the hillside, it was invisible. I mean, the rootstock was the only thing you could see. I didn't see the stone wall until I was leaving it. Because I came in above it.
Yeah,
and there were just little erosion dams, is what they were.
Probably been better to describe, to actually put it on the rootstock and describe it as that. But.
Right, because that was a thing that you could see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like from listening to, so we've heard from Glenn, Jim, and Joseph. Is that right?
Yeah.
You can pull the roads up. Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like I didn't realize this was also Brown X. So this was men and women.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look very carefully. No one corrected me. So I just from hearing what you've all talked about with the leg, it seems like and everyone was doing some variation of straight. It seems like execution was the key on this leg. I don't know that anyone could have done something dramatically different. Let's see, Chris had, I think, an exceptionally good leg for the speed. The speed difference between, for instance, Chris and Glenn, it's probably fairly large. I think that's fair to say. But a good execution. Looked like it made the difference. I don't think in the top runners we're going to see anything. Oh, there we go. Walter's leg is interesting. Let's look at Walter's.
Peter's leg's interesting.
And Peter?
Yeah, I was going to say there's plenty of examples, including mine, of how not to do this leg.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean by interesting for Peter's.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, first look. I think Walter's is interesting for a different reason. Only 100 meters longer route than Glenn's. Let's put them both up here. I don't know. Is your speed comparable, generally speaking?
Close.
Yeah,
we're pretty close, I think.
I would think so. So you had the same in the beginning, and a little divergence there, which made the difference. 40 seconds, 100 meters.
Yeah, I wonder if Walter just misread the spur. Went one spur further than he intended to. And maybe he was looking for that power line.
It could be. I wonder, I mean, this is not a small reentrant. It's not as big as, obviously as big as this one. I wonder if it's it's possible he realized too late that wasn't the one. Oh joy.
This is Brenda.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have my track probably. So I went down and got to the trail where Walter did, a little bit further to the east.
Okay.
And then I went up the reentrant that has the rock right before it.
This one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I got up to the top and I did a 90-degree error and ended up over in the reentrant that went across the power line.
Over here.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. So I wasn't following my compass when I got up to the top. But the power line helped me out because
you saw it.
It was like, there's the power line. So then I figured out, because I was looking down the reentrant and it's like, yeah, why is there this stream down there? But, so yeah, there are some good ways to do it badly.
Yeah, so that's the key. There was enough to look at in this leg that it was about the execution. So we can look at Peter's route. He's not here, is he?
No.
That's the best time to look at someone's route when they've done something creative. Is this the one? I recall that Peter said something about like things he never needed to do again.
Yeah, I think this is Peter's largest
Was this the
mistake
leg?
in like his career or something.
Right, in like the last few decades. All right. Well, it can be interesting sometimes to see, like, to think about what went wrong, and I don't know if someone else has his log right up handy.
Yeah, but I talked to him after the race, and essentially he just mistook the reentrance there right after he crossed the trail. So he thought he was, sort of following, more along the line, didn't look at his compass. And sort of a little bit steeper on it, and was just up in the top of the wrong reentrant, and I'd say he didn't quite realize sort of how the steepness of it was probably steeper than what he should have been looking for, and it wasn't as long.
Right. So you're comparing the steepness of going up here.
Yeah. Right.
Versus the steepness of going up over here.
Right.
Instance. Yeah.
Yeah. And once you got over to the top, or could see the quote the top of the reentrant, it was probably steeper and shorter than what he should have been expecting. There was momentary unhappiness, and then he goes, "Okay, I'm done with that." And I'm still out there walking, running, and orienteering, having a good time. I'm over it.
Yeah. You can't dwell while you're out there. I have to move right on. So I sense a theme that the legs, the slower routes that we're seeing are because of poor execution, and it does seem to be about direction control, which is often the case. Mary, are you interested in looking at yours? We don't have to. You don't have to. We can move on.
I can teach you guys all sorts of other things, but yeah, I did mostly okay until I got to the top, but yeah, I got pulled over by other people, and so I want to say that's something that's I was not confident in where I was crossing that top ridge, and spent too much time with other people, and of course going too far. So when we got up, there was another rootstock and another little cliff up to the far east there, that last one. So I remember something JJ Cote once told me, that if there's 4 or 5 people looking around for something, you're all in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And there were 4 of us looking, and I think several of them came from the direction like Peter did. So I think other people got caught by that first where Peter did and came up and over. So yeah, if you got off your line on this execution, I think for me personally, it was the climb. I got tired and brain dead. All of my mistakes were after a climb.
Yes, Kevin, go ahead.
So what I did is, when I went up and over where everybody did, I kind of went the way Joe did. I used the 2 streams. I wasn't even looking at the trails. And so after I crossed this second stream, I thought that I was on the correct spur. And then I looked for the reentrant on the right that people ran up, but I stayed up on the spur because I wanted to stay to the left of 7 when I came in the reentrant over the top of the ridge. And I went through the light green. I think I just ran through it. It was no big deal. And then I had the same thing. So I came across going towards the, to the right. So I was closer to 8 going over to 7. And then I had the same problem everybody else had. I didn't slow me down, but I'm looking for where the feature was, because it was buried in the little gully there. But I saw the tree thing and went in as well. But I never, for me, the ride and the power line, I didn't even see those until, I didn't even know they were on the map until after I was finished with the course. And then I was amazed that I was drawing my course on, I drew it on the other route gadget. And I never even noticed the indistinct trail or the power line when I went up the spur. But it didn't matter because I saw the big reentrant. I think the reentrant was pointing right where I wanted to go. Just had to get over the hill and go to the right, and it went really well.
Yeah, it sounds like most people didn't notice the light green wasn't a problem at all here.
And I actually went. I went to the right side of that the little wall that's to the south of the control there to kind of be, on the edge of the green if I could be, but I don't remember it being particularly, it's like noticeable, but it's light green, appropriately mapped.
Right. With perhaps a 20% reduction in running speed. Joseph, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about the way it was mapped. It was mapped as a stone wall, but a stone wall I always think of as being a wall on both sides.
It's mapped as a retaining wall. It's only
retaining wall is what it was.
Which is different from a stone wall.
Is there a symbol for that?
If you look at it, it's only got the circle on one side. It's like a half circle.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, this is a
zoom
good
in,
little.
Zoom in. Oh,
it's fuzzy when you zoom in, but I can. We can just go to the wiki. There's going to be a 200. Right? Oh. Retaining wall. Here we go. Oh, it's not going to be very big.
You can see it.
But yeah, the retaining wall has the dots just on one side. So the half dot points to like cliff tags, the dot would point to the lower side. And so that's why it's often used for like dams. And if I zoom in, it's the resolution of the image isn't really.
Actually, the one to the right
this
there
one's
is
pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see that it's a black line and then a dot, and the dot's on the downhill side.
Okay. Well, I wish I had seen that. Of course, I probably can't see it clearly anyway.
It is, that would probably, because it's probably sort of the minimum length, right? It's just got the one little dot. They're pretty small walls. I think that would be pretty hard to see on the run. But yeah, not knowing, I don't think I had anything around there, not knowing what it looked like, but it seems like that would be the right.
Does the control description distinguish between stone wall and retaining wall?
I don't think so.
No, they're both. I think you only have stone wall to use as a description.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So if you couldn't tell which one it was, looking at the map, then and you looked at the description to tell you, then yeah, it wouldn't help you distinguish. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and the mapper is on the call, so she's taking notes, probably, right? And appreciating the comments about the green being appropriately mapped, and yeah. All right, I got one more leg that pulled up, and I also had another one that I might want to do. So if there are no more comments on Brown X, especially this leg, I'm gonna move over, spreading the love a little bit. Oh, we already did a bunch of green X. Maybe we don't. Day 1, leg 8 is the one actually I think we're gonna go to. So back to green X, but this is the Saturday course. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. I didn't do that the last one, so you can see that, especially for those who weren't there. This event took place in the same area, same park, both days. But the first day was over on this side of the creek or river, which was steeper hills. And the second day, Sunday, the ones we were looking at were over on this side, on the west side. I found, I don't know if everybody agrees, but I found that the woods were in places a little junkier on Saturday than on Sunday, even where it wasn't necessarily, obviously there's more patches of green on the first day, but generally still very good visibility and open, but we had some pretty steep slopes. So I had an email from you, Niels, that I just see now, that you were willing to talk about specifically about leg 8, give it a little introduction. You still up for
that? Sure.
Okay.
Let me see here. Okay. So the leg itself, it's about 950 meter straight, It's along traversing a hillside with lots of valleys and ridges. I think that 4 main routes, and maybe I can just start with, going from the slower to the faster. Can you put Jorgen Borgström's route up? He's a little down, about 17 minutes or something. He went all the way to the left, down to the big trail, and basically you could have gone halfway, you can go even all the way over to Control 1 and follow the trails. So why am I highlighting this? I think this is probably the safest route. So if you are a fast trail runner who's new to orienteering, this is probably a really good, leg route to run. But it's 90% longer than the straight line, so it's just too long for this type of terrain. You can then if you click on my route, that was kind of what I did was the idea was to try to contour along, and the benefit of doing that is basically you spread out the climb, but at the same time it adds distance as you go in and out of these valleys and ridges. And I ran about 1,200 meter, 30% longer than the straight route, and had about 60-meter climb. And then next, maybe you can do Wyatt. So he did kind of a typical ridge and valley route choice, where you climb up the ridge you're on, find the higher point, run along the ridge, and come down towards the control. And this was about 50% longer than the straight route and had 70-meter climb. So only 10-meter more climb than I did. And here as the climb up is it's a steep climb, but not that steep. And you kind of do your climb early, but at the same time, your attack point, it's to the control is quite vague down the hillside. So that's the risky navigational side to it. And then the fastest route, you have Vladimir on top there, and I do believe Mikkel Platt, who was the fastest here, did about the same route and was about 5 seconds faster than Vladimir. That's basically steep climb up to begin with, but then you hit the trail, flat trail, and then you kind of contour in. So that's about 13 or say 15% longer than the straight route, and once you've finished the climb, it's pretty good running all the way in. So Michael Platt was about 20 seconds faster than Riley, who went all the way up the hill, and Wiley was about 5 seconds faster than me along the hillside.
And just to let people know, if the splits have been uploaded to LiveLox, we can actually see Michael Platt has not uploaded a route or drawn a route, but we can still see the table, his time for the leg. Yep. This is we're looking at 8, so we can verify here that he had the fastest time on the leg, 9:45, and then you just know from talking to him what he did.
I heard via some other people. I didn't talk to him directly, but I was told that he did something similar to Vladimir, who had the fastest of the LiveLox times.
Now I'm curious, did anyone do, all right, that's not a left route. So Joe Brodigam, same thing. Doesn't seem like anybody else really did that far left route.
I know on this did it, but he has not posted on live.
Yeah, I was curious how much of the difference was the significant additional distance from that. I think it's probably mostly it's 800 meters longer than the straight routes. Yeah. All right. Anybody else who ran this leg like to talk about it? And we have a few people.
Yeah, it's Minjay here. I think this was the leg where I got a little impatient and was like considering taking the route that Wyatt Riley took going up, but then I was like, actually, I think I'm just gonna go straight. But then I regretted it immediately, so because of the climb up the valley. So I went along the trail because it was a bit more gradual, so I had some time to recover. And then from there, I just followed some re-entrance down towards the river and then across. Though looking now, I probably should have stuck to the trail on the left a little longer because that's also hugging the control line a little more. Fun leg, but I was like pretty oxygen deprived.
So my comment, Christina, is a lot of this is whoever could get up the hill the fastest for much of the course was really the winner. I think, if you could run the hills, and I think that's one of the reasons why Michael Platt did so well, because I think he could run the hills faster. So while some of us were plodding up the hills, he was still moving quicker. So I haven't compared the dual thing, so I don't know if the dual, what that shows, hill climb versus the distance, but that's my 2 cents.
Christina, this is Cooper Green. I did the same thing as Wyatt and really liked the route. I didn't have legs, so going up the hill was super slow. But then I really enjoyed turning off my brain and running the trail. And then when I came down the trail, I came to the erosion gully and contoured in. So that was a good attack point for me to contour in. Yep, perfect. Right down that trail. At the top of the erosion gully is where I went in and started contouring, coming down a little bit, right? Yeah. So I wish I had the speed of these young guys, but I thought that was a pretty good route anyway.
Who are you calling young?
like the 65-year-old Michael?
Yeah. Yeah. Inspirational, right? To see sometimes get your butt kicked by somebody who's a little older. We are at an hour, and I think there are probably a lot more legs we could talk about, a lot more things we could do. I will stick around for a few minutes if there's anybody who has any particular questions about the tools, or anything that they want to just look at and ask questions about as a group. But I'm going to stop the recording now. This will be all that we'll upload to OESA. So I will be here. Is there anybody who has anything? Go ahead and raise your hand if you got something. I'm just going to go turn off the recording.
So if I